On a cold February morning in 1542, a young woman, barely out of her teens, walked to the executioner's block inside the Tower of London. She'd been Queen of England for less than 2 years. Her name was Catherine Howard, Henry VIII's fifth wife, and her crime wasn't just adultery. It was about a past she couldn't outrun and a court that showed zero mercy. This is the story of how a vibrant girl's life was twisted into political treason, ending in one of the most brutal chapters of Tudor history. Catherine Howard was born into a family with a famous name but not much else. She was a Howard, niece to the powerful Duke of Norfolk, and first cousin to Anne Boleyn, the queen who had already lost her head. But Catherine's side of the family was the poor relation. Her father, Lord Edmund Howard, was a younger son with massive debts and a constant struggle to stay afloat. Her childhood was anything but stable. After her mother died, Catherine, one of around 10 children, was sent to live with her step-grandmother, the Dowager Duchess of Norfolk. You'd think this would be a place of safety and education, but the Duchess's homes were sprawling, chaotic places. Dozens of kids from aristocratic but broke families were all housed together with almost no supervision. It was in this free-for-all environment that Catherine's troubles began. With no real parental guidance, she fell into the orbit of older people who took advantage of her. First, her music teacher, Henry VIII, started a flirtation that crossed every single line. Then, more seriously, she began a relationship with Francis Derham, a household secretary. Theirs was a passionate, reckless affair. They called each other husband and wife, and Derham even trusted her with his money, a sign of just how serious they were. To them, it might have felt like a promise for the future. To Tudor law, it would later look like a pre-contract to marry, and that was a legally dangerous thing. These weren't just youthful mistakes, they were secrets. And in the Tudor court, secrets could buy you power or a death sentence. Catherine's chaotic upbringing had taught her to read and write, but it hadn't taught her how to spot the snakes in the grass at court. She was a girl defined by her relationships, yet she had never learned how to use them to survive. This naive teenager, with a past she thought she'd left behind, was about to be shoved onto England's most dangerous stage. In 1539, Catherine's powerful uncle, the Duke of Norfolk, spotted his chance. King Henry VIII, nearly 50 and in failing health, was trapped in a miserable political marriage to his fourth wife, Anne of Cleves. To put it mildly, Henry found his German bride so unappealing the marriage was never even consummated. Norfolk, seeing an opportunity to take down his rival Thomas Cromwell, who had arranged the marriage, pushed his vivacious teenage niece right into the king's line of sight. Catherine was brought to court as a lady-in-waiting to the queen she was about to replace. Henry was instantly smitten. Catherine was nearly 30 years younger, fun, flirty, and English. Everything Anne of Cleves was not. The French ambassador wrote, scandalized, that the king was so amorous of her that he cannot treat her well enough and caresses her more than he did the others. For the aging, paranoid king, who was dealing with a constantly festering leg wound, Catherine felt like a fountain of youth. He called her his rose without a thorn. The end of his fourth marriage was swift. On July 9, 1540, the marriage to Anne of Cleves was annulled. Just 19 days later, Henry married Catherine Howard in a private ceremony. Overnight, the broke girl from a neglected home became the Queen of England. She chose a motto that said it all: non autre volonté que la sienne, no other will but his. It was a promise to be everything the king wanted her to be. As queen, Catherine loved the glamour of her new life, with its fine clothes and music. She was kind to her stepchildren, and while her relationship with Henry's oldest daughter, Mary, who was actually older than Catherine, was tense at first, it eventually settled into a respectful distance. The king showered her with gifts, and for a moment it looked like Henry had finally found happiness. But the court was a place of bitter rivalries. Catherine was a Howard queen, a win for the court's conservative faction, but her enemies were just waiting for her to slip up. And the king had no idea that his rose without a thorn had brought her past with her. The perfect marriage started to fall apart in the autumn of 1541. Now that Catherine was queen, men from her past started showing up, hoping to get a piece of her new power. In an act of incredible recklessness, she appointed Francis Derham, her old flame, as her private secretary. She had just placed a man who knew her deepest secrets at the very center of the court. But it got worse. Catherine had started a dangerous flirtation with one of the king's favorite courtiers, a handsome man named Thomas Culpeper. Culpeper had a reputation for being arrogant and ambitious. Their secret meetings were arranged by one of Catherine's ladies-in-waiting, who should have known better, Jane Boleyn, Lady Rochford, the widow of Catherine's own executed cousin. Lady Rochford, a veteran of court politics, acted as the go-between, helping the young queen and the dashing courtier meet late at night. A love letter in Catherine's own handwriting was later found in Culpeper's rooms, and it would be the nail in her coffin. The whole thing blew up when a man named John Lascelles, whose sister had lived with Catherine at the Dowager Duchess's house, reported what he knew to Archbishop Thomas Cranmer. His sister had seen Catherine's affairs with both Manox and Derham. Cranmer, a political enemy of the Howards, knew this information was dynamite. On All Souls' Day, he left a letter for the king in his private chapel, detailing every accusation against his queen. At first, Henry refused to believe it. He thought it was a vicious lie against his rose without a thorn, but he ordered Cranmer to investigate. The investigation was fast and brutal. Under interrogation, Derham and Manox confessed. Derham took it a step further, claiming he'd been replaced in the Queen's heart by Thomas Culpeper. When Catherine was confronted, she completely fell apart. Archbishop Cranmer found her in such a state of lamentation and heaviness that he said it would have pitied any man's heart. She confessed to her past with Derham, but swore she never committed adultery with Culpeper. But it was too late. The king's love curdled into pure fury. He had been played for a fool. His perfect rose had thorns, and he was going to make every single person who deceived him pay. The fall was just as fast as the rise. In November 1541, Catherine was stripped of her title as queen. On December 10th, Thomas Culpeper and Francis Derham were executed at Tyburn. As a gentleman, Culpeper was given the mercy of beheading. Derham suffered the full traitor's death. He was hanged, drawn, and quartered. Their heads were stuck on spikes on London Bridge, a gruesome warning Catherine likely saw when she was rowed by barge to the Tower of London. Her fate was sealed not by a trial, which would have been too humiliating for the king, but by Parliament. A special bill of attainder was passed, a law that declared her guilty of high treason without ever having to see a courtroom. It even retroactively made it treason for a queen to have hidden a not pure past from the king before marriage. It was a legal trap designed specifically to kill her. On February 10th, 1542, Catherine was taken to the Tower. It's said that in her final days, terrified of a clumsy execution, she asked for the block to be brought to her room so she could practice laying her head on it. She was determined to die like a queen. On the morning of February 13th, Catherine, who historians believe was likely no older than 18 or 19, was led to a scaffold on Tower Green, possibly the very same spot where her cousin Anne Boleyn had died. Eyewitnesses said she was so pale and weak she had to be helped up the steps. She gave a short speech admitting her guilt and asking for prayers. That famous legend that she said, "I die a queen, but I would rather die the wife of Culpeper," has no evidence to back it up. With a single swing of the axe, her short, chaotic life was over. Immediately after, Lady Rochford was also executed. Catherine was buried in an unmarked grave in the Tower's chapel, right alongside Anne Boleyn, two Howard queens killed by the same paranoid king. The Tudor court was a world of unbelievable power and terrifying danger, where your private life was never your own. What do you think? Was Catherine a naive victim of her circumstances, or a reckless queen who played the game and lost? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Catherine Howard's story is more than just a scandal. It's a brutal look at how power, politics, and being a woman intersected in an age where women were so often just pawns. She was the product of a neglected childhood, thrown into a world she was completely unprepared for. Her family engineered her rise for their own political gain, and her enemies engineered her fall for theirs. Henry's rose without a thorn was, in the end, a young girl failed by every single person who should have protected her. Her past was twisted into treason by a legal system built to serve the ego of an aging, vengeful king. Ultimately, Catherine Howard was executed not just for what she did, but for who she had been. A tragic reminder that in the court of Henry VIII, there was truly no other will but his.